Okay, it's time to commit. 2024 is the year for prioritizing yourself. Begin your new smile journey with Byte, and you could start seeing results in just 2 to 3 weeks. Just order your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95 at Byte.com. Byte Clear aligners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces. Plus, they offer financing options, accept eligible insurance, and you can pay with your HSA, FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
Welcome to Scarred for Life, the podcast where we open up old wounds by looking back at the films that scared us as kids. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth.
And each episode, our special guest will bring with them a movie that traumatized them as a child.
This week, our special guest is the queer, non-monogamous writer, Cooper S. Beckett. Cooper hosts a couple podcasts, including Reality Is Not What It Used to Be, and recently released Osgood Riddance, the second book in the Spectral Inspector series. Thanks for joining us, Cooper.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
So Cooper, tell us a little bit about this your Osgood series. I know you just recently in October released the second book, and I'm about like 50 pages into it. I haven't been able to read as much as I wanted because things have been super hectic, but I am reading it and I am really enjoying it.
Well, I'm glad. The Spectral Inspector books are based on a series that I started in college, which started with a caddish male anti-hero lead, where he was a ghost hunter, and he, I wanted to do books like Gregory MacDonald's Fletch, where it's a new story every book. They're short, they're quick, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I was heavily influenced by Buffy the Vampire Slayer and all that milieu around the same time. So as the years went by and I started publishing, I really wanted to get back to that type of series, but I realized I didn't really care about the white male anti-hero anymore.
Yes.
And so I thought, okay, well, what can I do here that'll make me interested in it again? And I came up with the idea of swapping the genders, but not shaving down the anti-hero aspect.
Okay, yeah.
So I created Prudence Osgood, who is a woman in her very early 40s who deals with chronic pain, who has incredible repressed trauma due to an accident, a car accident in her 20s that actually killed her for 8 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
And so she has recurring night terrors from that accident where she relives the accident every night. And because of that, she drinks ridiculously heavily because if she blacks out, she doesn't have to relive the accident. And she is addicted to bootleg oxycodone for her chronic pain from the accident, and basically pushes everybody away in her life. That is her
MO.
MO, yeah. And so the first book is about she sort of accidentally stumbles into a case involving a bunch of missing teenagers and a band that was really popular decades before that tangentially involves her ex-partner, who's Audrey, who they were ghost hunters together. They had a ghost hunter TV show, in the boom era of ghost hunting TV shows.
Right.
And she got convinced by the executives to fake a haunting. And she faked it without letting her partner in on it. So that blew up their relationship, and they hadn't talked in 15 years when this book starts. And so I wanted to really do a meditation on regret. What happens when you are the asshole in the relationship? And how do you deal with that when you no longer want to be the asshole, but when your personality sort of lends itself to being the asshole? So Osgood is dealing with her emotional scars from her past, her physical scars, her mental health issues, all while trying to figure out this steadily growing mystery/horror investigation that's getting darker and darker with every new lead. And the book 2, I don't want to talk much about because it leads directly from the climax of book 1.
Right.
But it introduces monsters and witches to the Spectral Inspector universe.
Hell yes.
Yeah, I went into book 2, with an outline that immediately went off course. And
as they sometimes do.
Like literally everything I planned more than a couple chapters ahead were blown out of the water. Like I could not get a handle on book 2. It wrote itself. It's one of those weird instances where it took me where it wanted to be.
It's kind of cool though.
Oh yeah, I'm thrilled with the result of it. It just was not what I expected it to be at all.
Well, and like I said, I am about, I think when I put it down yesterday, I was about 50 pages into the second book, and it really grabbed me immediately with the immediacy of I don't want to spoil anything, but of how it started. I was immediately grabbed. Good. And I think it's really good so far.
I've had a lot of people like it better than the first one, which surprised me because it is dramatically different from the first one. The first one is a slow burn mystery that really only turns, balls out horror in the last several chapters. And this one starts at that level.
Oh yeah.
And never really lets up. And there is no downtime in book 2, which I really like. It makes me very happy.
Cool.
And I put stuff in that genuinely creeps me out.
Ooh, that's even cooler.
Yeah, like when I came up with I put the things that scare me, the real life things that scare me, and I'm going to throw out 2 words: cordyceps and teratomas.
Oh God!
And if you don't know what those things are,
no.
This book involves both of them, and they frighten me more than anything else, I think, in the world.
Play the Last of Us.
Yes.
Oh. Ugh.
Yeah. And then I know that you host at least 2 podcasts. Is that?
Well, so my podcasting career started with a podcast called Life on the Swing Set.
Yes.
Which is a non-monogamy podcast.
Are you still doing that one?
I've taken an extended hiatus from
it.
I will get back to it. I'm not on it at the moment. It is still going, but it is my co-hosts are running with it at the moment. I took the time off so I could write these books and focus a little bit more in the horror realm away from the sexuality realm.
Oh, okay.
And then your new podcast.
My new podcast, yeah.
I was happy to guest on twice. Maybe more?
Well, I definitely want you back if that's what you're asking there. My goal for this podcast was I would rant endlessly about politics and religion and movies and everything on my sexuality podcast. Mm-hmm. And as much as I feel it's part of a whole, a holistic approach to sexuality, I recognize that not everybody who listens to a podcast about sexuality wants to be confronted with my opinions about Donald Trump.
Right.
So therefore, I thought, well, why don't I just create a podcast that clearly lists itself as a self-indulgent podcast about these many topics? And that's what Reality Is Not What It Used to Be is. It's based on, I actually did a radio show in college called Reality. And it was a talk show where we'd talk about whatever topics we decided to talk about. And so I really enjoy the idea of this being Reality Is Not What It Used to Be, because I'm a very different person than I was in college. I'm openly queer and non-monogamous, whereas I was very hetero and very, very into the idea of monogamy back in college. So it's about the fact that you're not always who you think you are, and the value of learning new things and exploring new things is so important. And I think horror films, which are our first 2 episodes revolve around horror films, I think horror encapsulates emotional growth and change somehow better than any other genre.
It definitely does. I would 100% agree with that.
Because, it pushes you, anything that pushes you out of your comfort zone is going to change you. And like your show is about the horror movies that scarred us, which is the horror movies that changed us. Because it's impossible to be scarred without, growing that new scar, and changing. Yeah. And I think that's what's so exciting about horror, and why I love it as a genre so much, is because I can trace these moments that affected me, and even the littlest of moments. Like when you first asked me to join you on the show, the first thing I came up with is a movie called The Boy Who Could Fly.
I'm not familiar with that one.
It's a melodrama. It may have been Canadian. I don't know. It was a little movie. One of those things that when you don't have cable and your parents go to the West Coast Video, they come back with,
Right.
Yep.
And there's a moment in it that's a dream sequence where the lead woman's father is in the hospital and in a coma. And in this dream sequence, he opens his eyes, and it's a sting moment. And I don't think it's meant to be a jump scare, but it's horrifying.
Oh.
And it was one of those things that would just show up in dreams. And
ooh, that's always wild when those things appear in your dreams when you least expect it.
And I can trace all these things that had significant horrific effect on me. Do you remember the only 2 times Tom talked in Tom and Jerry?
He talked?
Twice. Me too. And both of those times, he talked in this horrifically echoey voice saying, "Don't you believe it?"
Oh.
And it was terrifying. And I don't know why. Like I've done these searches, like trying to figure out what the hell this was. Like, why on earth did this happen twice? And was it a reference to something? And nobody knows.
Huh. Oh my God, that's so weird.
And it's really funny revisiting these things as an adult, because like I see these tendrils, especially now that I'm writing horror. I see these tendrils of things that affected me when I was much younger that just have these long tail effects.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that, because I can, like, going back to our first episode, the arachnophobia has really changed.
Oh, I love that movie.
I hate it. I have no desire to ever watch it again. I've seen it like 3 times in my life now, and it completely changed the way I interact with household items. So
sure,
and I was I was probably 10 or so at the time when I saw that, and it, more than any other rated R horror movie that I'd seen that as a kid, really, fucked me up. So I think there definitely is something to that.
Yeah.
But horror in general, I think just is a great additive to anything. You can add it to comedy, you can add it to drama, you can add it to science fiction or fantasy, and I think it adds a different level that other genres don't necessarily get to do.
It's the only genre that really can be that.
Yes.
Like any horror film can have funny things in it. But you can't have a beheading in a comedy unless it's a very specific thing. You know, so it's such a unique and flexible genre because of that. And like you wouldn't What We Do in the Shadows, which is a brilliant vampire mockumentary.
God, it is one of my favorite vampire movies of all time.
It's just unbelievable.
It's so
I mean, like, there's no reason that should be as good as it is, but it is. And it's very definitely a horror movie, but it is also incredibly silly, and you still get the horror, and that's what's great about it, is you can get that little twinge of frightening, because there are moments like that.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we're werewolves, not swearwolves. Yeah.
Oh, it's so
what
good.
A perfect
I just off the podcast or however you want to do it, I just shared the 4-second YouTube clip of Tom talking.
Oh. What the hell?
I know, right?
That's horrifying.
That is,
and not
so
only
horrifying.
that, but like seeing this again as an adult, I remember the first nightmare I ever had, and it involved a cat with veins in his eyes. The cartoon veins, like the where someone's really tired and they have veins in their eyes. But clearly, seeing this clip of Tom, I realized that that's the cat. That's the thing from my very, very first memorable nightmare.
Wow. That's intense.
It is.
I mean, I feel like a lot of those old kid shows too, like a lot of the Looney Tunes stuff had such adult things in them.
They did, yeah.
And I took a class during my master's about race in film, like it was like representations of African Americans in film, and we talked a lot about how a lot of early Looney Tunes stuff and Mickey Mouse was so horribly racist. And I mean, and like they use a lot of like those racist caricatures to portray fear, especially remember those Betty Boop cartoons with like Cab Calloway and the rotoscoping? Oh, so wild.
It's really unbelievable how different things are.
Yeah.
And how the world has not gotten better for African Americans, really. But
no.
It's like less obvious sometimes in a way.
Media's trying very hard, I think, to be better.
Yeah.
And it's obviously not all media, and there are still monstrously racist people in media, but I was watching Killer Klowns yesterday. The moment when they go up to Inspiration Point and they're going to go look for the meteor, and he does his Native American impression.
Yep.
And I was just thinking, that could just be lifted right out. That wouldn't change anything. You could just take that little, and then I was thinking, well, would that be beneficial for movies to do that? Or does that just pretend that it wasn't racist at the time?
Yeah.
Like Disney has done. And it's such a difficult thing to contend with, and it takes me out of the movie whenever I see stuff like that. Like I was listening to the Halloweenies podcast, and they were talking about Freddy versus Jason.
Oh, yep.
And there's one moment in Freddy versus Jason with a bizarrely timed homophobic slur.
Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't make sense, and it feels off even from the time it was, but it really feels off now.
Yeah, that's something that like I when it came out, I honestly don't even remember that line, and then I revisited it recently when everyone was doing, like, they're talking about it and doing all the like articles and podcasts about it, and I rewatched it and I was like, it comes out of nowhere.
Nowhere. Yeah.
Have you seen it, Mary Beth?
Freddy vs. Jason?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Okay. Well, the what's her name? She was in she was with Beyonce in the girls group. I can't remember what her name is, but
oh shit.
Yeah.
I'm looking.
I know who you're talking about.
But she calls Freddy a faggot.
Yeah.
And
but like, why do we have? There's so many other things you could
Kelly
say.
Rowland is her.
Kelly Rowland, yeah.
Well, it's in this line of is supposed to be funny insults. She says, "What kind of a faggot wears a Christmas sweater in the middle of the summer?" It's like, clearly they're supposed to be funny,
right?
I thought. When did that movie come out again?
2000.
It was early 2000s.
2003.
Okay, yeah.
So like that was before, I guess, we started getting a little bit of a sense about not saying words like that as like a joke.
Right.
But good God.
It's just like it just comes out of absolutely nowhere, and it's jarring, especially revisiting it now, that your heroes would be saying that kind of thing. You know?
Yeah, indeed. I know I took us on a tangent there.
That's kind of how we do here. So Mary Beth, what have you been watching recently?
So what have I been watching? So besides the films that I've been watching for the podcast, I watched a movie called The Shed that had its world premiere at the Sitges Film Festival on Friday, I believe. And Terry, I know you saw this, and we talked about it a little bit on Twitter, but I really liked it for the most part. The Shed is about an orphan kid named Stan who lives with his awful abusive grandfather, and he's a bullied teen, and he just kind of he keeps getting it from all angles. This kid, he's the epitome of a character that I just want to give a big hug and tell him it will all be okay. But eventually he discovers that a vampire has taken up residence in his shed, and it is not like a cool vampire. It is a nasty vampire that kind of looks like one of the vampires from Salem's Lot.
The classic Terry, Nosferatu type vampire?
Yeah, because Terry, you had a really good comparison in your review. Was it like Nosferatu via Salem's Lot, or the other way around?
Yeah, it was Nosferatu via, by the way of, what's his name, Barlow?
Yeah, by Barlow. And that was a really good comparison. And unfortunately, the last act kind of feels like an entirely different movie. It feels what I would like to equate to like a Goosebumps novel in terms of it being a little bit cheesy.
Yeah, it turns from like this really stark character drama between these two friends who find this vampire in the shed, and you know they're abused in both their home life and at school, and there's that kind of like danger of well, we have this vampire in the shed, and then like Mary Beth says, it sort of goes off on a tangent in the last act, and it becomes about something completely different.
Yeah, and there's like a really interesting thing about being bullied and like trying to take vengeance and using this vampire as a weapon. And it's really, I thought it was like very emotional and very sad and a good movie. And then the last act kind of gets very hokey, which is really frustrating to me just because like it is such an important tale of like, trauma and talking about how, you know, aspects of toxic masculinity in kids might manifest because of their home life.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And it doesn't really go that far into its message, but I still really enjoyed it for the most of it, and I also really enjoyed that it's a vampire movie because I am a vampire freak.
Yeah, and I'm glad that I'm hoping that they're going to make a comeback.
So in my review, I wrote a review for Nightmare on Film Street, and I was like, I hope this is the mark of the beginning of a vampire renaissance, because I feel like they've just kind of fallen out. I mean, I know What We Did in the Shadows made vampires, like, to quote my friend Brianna, made vampires cool again and kind of brought them back, and they had the TV show. But I'm hoping we get more vampire movies, especially vampire movies where the vampires aren't sexy but just like gross.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I love gross, nasty vampires, and so I'm really hoping this is a marker for maybe like more vampire films, because I miss my vampire movies and I want more of them. Please and thank you.
I will just be happy if vampires stop being sparkly. You know?
Yeah, we haven't seen that in a long time. I'm like hoping that people realize that like vampires can be gross. Like they don't have to be sexy gothic characters. Like they can be nasty. And
well,
they are,
even
like,
if they are
vampires
sexy and gothic, like my favorite vampire movie is Interview with the Vampire. I think it's
it's an amazing one.
They are still monsters.
Yeah, and like there was Coppola's Dracula too, where he's like real sexy and then he's real ugly and he's a wolf, and that's a really interesting look at like the dichotomy of vampire. And I just want more like that. That's what I like to see, but I hope people have cool, better, unique ideas for the vampire.
Well, it's not going away as a genre. It's been, it just keeps recycling.
True. Terry, what have you been watching? The Shed's all I can think of that's like really made a mark on my brain. Oh, wait, I lied.
I was gonna say, are you gonna say what I think you're gonna say?
I don't know.
What are you gonna say?
Oh, it's not a new one.
Oh, never mind.
What do you think I was gonna say? I'll
the
cut
Furies.
This out. Oh shit! I forgot about the. Oh, I'll leave that for you.
Okay. I actually just watched that too.
Oh, we can talk about it. I was going to say Hounds of Love because I have never seen it. I know it's not new. I think it's 2016 or 2017. Have you either of you seen Hounds of Love?
Oh yes, no. I have seen it.
Oh boy.
I couldn't quite tell immediately how you took it based on your tweet, but then I saw your letterbox that you gave it, I think 4.5.
Yeah. I didn't know what to say on It's like Twitter. I just never know what to say. Like I never I'm so incoherent sometimes on Twitter. In terms of like trying to put together like a thoughtful Twitter thread about my reaction to a film. But Hounds of Love,
it's kind of hard in 280 cat characters, right?
It is so
That's
hard.
why my movie stuff is all on Instagram. I can't even with Twitter.
But Hounds of Love is an Australian movie. It's about a couple who...
A real life couple, I think. Or based on a real life couple.
So I think it's based... I have to double check, but I think it was like loosely based on the Toy Box Killers.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I think I have to triple check, but it's a couple that kidnap women, and this is focused on one of the women they kidnap, teenagers, and that they have them hostage in their house. But it's kind of like the guy wants to do it, and the girlfriend is kind of just following along because codependency. And it's about like the kind of weird relationship the three of them develop throughout her kidnapping, and how the young girl Vicky tries to manipulate the couple into kind of turning them against each other. It's mostly she tries to kind of show the woman that her boyfriend ain't shit. And he really, it's gross. And it's just it's slow in a way, but like in a really good way. And it's much more devastating and just harrowing and awful and leaves you feeling so empty at the end. But I like movies like that, which is probably telling about who I am as a person. But it was just so good. I never want to watch it again. I don't think.
Oh, yeah. I know those kind of movies.
It's like a movie that I love. It's like Martyr. It's like a movie that I love and that like I will tell people about to watch, but I will never watch them again. And I really loved it. But like the last 20 minutes of that movie, like I didn't take a breath. Like I couldn't breathe. I was so stressed.
It's a very powerful movie. I mean, it definitely comes with a lot of trigger and content warnings.
It is. It's very difficult to watch. So, like, if you just don't like those kinds of movies that like go very deep into what happens when someone is kidnapped, don't watch it. But it's on Hulu for Halloween. This is coming out after that, but it'll probably still be on Hulu. And it's worth a watch. It's been
on there for a bit.
Yeah, it's worth a watch if you can stomach things like that. But I just don't think a lot of people talk about it. I know it came out a while ago, but I just really enjoyed watching that for all of its awfulness.
Yeah.
So Terry, what have you watched? What do you want to talk about?
I kind of tipped my hand, but The Furies, this new movie that's on Shudder, also from Australia, about this group of women who don't know each other. They've all been kidnapped and placed in this outback forest that looks vaguely sinister. Kind of reminded me of like the forest in Witches, the comic book Witches, with all these like gnarly white trees. And then they find out that they're being stalked by men in these horrific masks. And it's sort of, I don't want to give away too much, but it sort of just goes from there. And it is violent as fuck, and it has some amazing practical effects.
Oh my god, some of the kills in that movie are absolutely gnarly.
The axe/face effect.
Yes, that is immediately what I think of, because there's a scene where they just take this axe and they're pushing in this person's face, and
they just keep going.
Yes, and the whole face just kind of comes off, and it is, it reminds me how much I love practical effects, and how much when you have a good team doing it, that they can be just absolutely killer. And I mean, they had a really good makeup and effects crew. One person worked on Mad Max, and I think the FX team has worked on, I can't remember what movies they are, but they've done a number of really, really cool practical effects work movies. And I thought the effects in this were just stunning. What did you guys think of it?
So it's another Australian movie, and I think I watched Hounds of Love, and I think The Furies either the same day or like in subsequent days, consecutive days rather. And I was like, Australia makes some damn good horror movies.
They do.
Lake Mungo is also an amazing Australian horror movie. And,
Lake Mungo.
But anyway, The Furies was like lean, mean, got right into it. And I also I thought it was very interesting how they used Kayla, is that her name? Mm-hmm. Kayla's epilepsy as a tool.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I'm always very fascinated with how horror is starting to kind of use disability, and especially like invisible disability, like epilepsy, invisible illness rather, as like in their films, and it was a tool, which I think is a fascinating way. And I would love to hear, like, I wonder if anyone with epilepsy has written about this, but it was fascinating how they use something that's considered her weakness into like a powerful thing and turns it into a tool. Like, I guess there are parts where she has an episode and she blacks out, but she's able to somehow tap into like the eyes of the killer and kind of see what they're doing. Yeah. And she's the only one that can do that because of her epileptic episodes. So I think that was a really interesting way of using something that can be seen as a bad thing and turning it into power, which I like when movies kind of try to play with that.
So the effects team, I just wanted to say they worked on Upgrade.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt, but they worked on Upgrade. That they worked on a movie called Cargo. They worked on Hacksaw Ridge.
Oh.
They did The Loved Ones. They did Lake Mungo.
Oh my god!
So they have a ton of practical effects work, and also on the Nightingale, the new one.
They did on the
Ooh.
So that's the new film by the woman
Jennifer
who directed
Kent.
Babadook. Yeah.
Yes.
But yes, I'm sorry. I just wanted to input that in because it was
a
final tangent. But yes, I loved how they used the because this doesn't really give much away. They've done something to their eye, and all the women's eyes, and like she can with her epileptic fits, she can see what the killers are doing. Yeah.
So just like an interesting way of using something that I think is sometimes stereotyped as a horrible thing and. Making it a tool, like I said before, something that she can find power in, especially because she's kind of characterized as a very meek character at the beginning, and it taps into a power. So I really liked that aspect, despite it being it's like less than 90 minutes.
Yeah, it felt very short to me.
It's lean, it's mean, but it's good. It's it's surprising. It's one of those Shudder movies that comes out and you get like an email about it and you're like, oh, that'll be cool to watch. And then it drops and everyone's like, this is fucking amazing. What? Where did this movie come from? And it's just like, I feel like Shudder is so consistently good at dropping these like amazing international horror, like original horror movies.
Mm-hmm. They really are. They've done some amazing work this year with, international overseas type movies that they've just sort of acquired, and I think it's fantastic. And then the other movie is I gotta say I am a Joe Bagos fan now.
Oh, did you see VFW?
I have seen VFW.
Oh, really?
And it's not as good as Bliss, but Bliss is like a 4.5, almost 5-star, and depending on how many times I watch it, it might become a 5-star movie for me. But it's like Assault on Precinct 13. It's like Mad Max. It's like Escape from New York. Like, it's all of this like 80s John Carpenter-esque type action movies with so much blood, so much gore, so many character actors that were like big in like the 80s. I mean, it has like Stephen Lang in it. It has what are their names? It just has like this huge cast.
Isn't Bill Sadler's the lead?
Yes, Bill Sadler's in it, and he is absolutely fantastic in it. He is hilarious. Martin Kove from Karate Kid is in it. You have David Patrick Kelly.
Wow.
So like all of Fred Williamson. So like all of these now old fogies, right? So they're like, they run this VFW, and there's this new drug on the market that's turning people into basically like crazy bath salt Florida man type monsters, and they all end up descending on this VFW because one of this teenager steals all of their big supply of drugs that the drug leader was going to sell the next day, and hides out in the VFW. And so these men all band together and do like a Last Stand type Alamo-esque
I love
fight.
those the base assault movies.
Yes, and it's so good. The things that they do in it, like the makeshift weapons they have to create, the way that it basically just stays in the VFW the entire movie, but it's really good.
Joe Bagos is killing it this year.
He really is. 2 movies.
I didn't realize he had 2. Like, I guess, was Bliss making this festival circuit last year too? I can't remember. 'Cause I feel like I just heard about it this year, and then VFW kind of feel like it came out of nowhere a little bit.
It really did.
I was like, who is this guy? It's just like throwing out movies left and right.
Right, and I haven't seen. I want to go check out his first 2 movies now. Almost Human and The Mind's Eye. I don't know if
I hadn't heard of any of them.
Okay, yeah, I remember the Mind's Eye because that came out like I want to say 2015.
Okay,
and it was kind of like a fire starter or like what's the movie with exploding heads? Was it Scanners?
Yeah, Scanners.
Yeah, Scanners.
So like it's kind of like a take on those, and he has this team that he just keeps working with, Josh Ethier and all this core team, and I think that they've just probably gotten better with each movie. But, yeah.
I'm excited to see it. I didn't get to see Bliss in theaters like I was supposed to because I was ill. I was too sick. I was like, there's no way I can struggle my ass into a movie theater right now. So I'm gonna have to catch it on VOD. But
I need you to see it.
I know. I need to see it for my own.
I just bought it. I have not yet watched it.
I really want to hear what you guys think of it. But speaking of movies, what have you seen recently, Cooper?
Well, I had the auspicious opportunity to see 3 from Hell this weekend.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
And have you seen it? Either of you?
No, I haven't.
No.
Tell me if I go too far with spoilery stuff here. Okay, so okay. I mean, you tell me. You knock me back. I was disappointed.
Okay, that's what I've heard from a lot of people.
Yeah, it feels like a slightly low-rent remake of The Devil's Rejects.
Okay.
And, to put my cards on the table, I think Devil's Rejects is a masterpiece. Mm-hmm. I love Devil's Rejects. And the problems with this is, Devil's Rejects has this great dichotomy between these monsters that we somehow like and this good man who's trying really hard to still be good. But he's sucked into this horrific, experience here. And 3 from Hell just doesn't have the good man. It's only the monsters. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, they lost the most compelling monster. Because Sid Haig is in it for like 3 minutes.
Oh,
Do you know why that is? He was really sick, and that was like all that.
And Rob Zombie didn't know. And honestly, I mean, it sucks because I know that it's all Sid Haig could give, but it's the kind of thing where it makes me feel like maybe they shouldn't have made the movie.
Interesting.
Like, Sid Haig's absence is so felt, and his being written off is so, like,
anticlimactic.
Yeah. And it's just because he, I love who plays Otis? Fuck. Bill Moseley.
I
love
I know.
Bill
I was
Moseley.
like, I know who this
It's on the tip of my tongue.
And Bill Moseley has this great delivery style and charisma that makes this monster Otis oddly likable. And but the heart, bizarrely, of Devil's Rejects is Sid Haig. And I mean, it's a frustrating dislike, this movie. Like, Sherry Moon actually seems like she's acting for a change instead of just doing what Rob Zombie told her to do. She feels like she's actually understanding a character that she has developed and created. But the addition of Richard Brake, who I assume they just gave all of Sid Haig's shit to.
I believe that's kind of what happened, yeah.
Like, he's not interesting. He doesn't have much of a backstory at all. And then, so, like Devil's Rejects, this crew goes to a location, they spend some time there, they terrorize the people, they go to a bigger location, there's a big conflict, and unlike, Devil's Rejects, which gives them a comeuppance, this one doesn't. It's like, like Rob Zombie drank too much of his own Kool-Aid, because, he knows these are bad people. He knows that. He gave us that in Devil's Rejects. We're not supposed to love them, and we're supposed to want them to get away, but at the same time understand that they can't. They have to be gunned down at the end, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, like, to talk about the toxic male anti-hero, that's what Devil's Rejects is. But it understands that they are also monsters, and I don't know how to deal with a movie that doesn't process them also as monsters.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not really a fan of the Rob Zombie's movies, I hate to say.
Devil's Rejects is the only Rob Zombie movie I'm a fan of.
See, I hear Lords of Salem is good, but like
it's okay. It's fine.
Fine.
Like his stuff just does not. It does not gel with me, and I don't know what it is. I think some of it might be the aesthetics of it. So I mean, I've seen The Devil's Rejects, and it was okay.
I actually haven't seen it. Don't revoke my horror card.
I mean, it's also a brutal, upsetting movie.
And like, that's not even. I don't mind that. I guess I've just seen some of Rob Zombie. I think I've actually seen Lords of Salem, and I was like, it's just not for me. Like, the aesthetic and the vibe, I don't think I'm the target audience, which is fine. I mean, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
I'm not the target audience for whatever he's trying to do. It's not me.
And that was one of the reasons why, like, I had this moment where I could have gotten a screener, and if I probably pursued it, I probably could have gotten it. But like, at the end of the day, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to add much to the discourse surrounding it, because it just, I haven't liked a single thing of his that I've seen. And
right.
I hate saying that because like, I don't want to write off an entire director, and I grew up listening to his music. There's something about his movies that just does not gel with me. It just doesn't make me it bores me a lot of times, to be honest. Well, I'm sad to hear it, and it's not just from you. I've heard from a number of people that 3 from Hell felt like an inferior remake in some ways of The Devil's Rejects.
Yeah.
And that's disappointing because I know a lot of people were really looking forward to this movie, and there's a lot of fans of The Devil's Rejects. I know that in the horror realm, I'm in the minority for not liking it, so it's a shame.
So we've talked about what we've watched recently. Now let's talk about what you've brought with you today, Cooper. What film have you brought with you today?
Well, Killer Klowns from Outer Space. And
I am so curious to hear what you have to say about this movie.
Me too.
But before we do that, let me get everyone up to speed and kind of do this little synopsis that we have for it, in case you haven't seen it. Because I think unlike some of the movies we've covered, this one some people might not have seen.
It's a bit more of a dark horse, I think.
Yeah.
It is. But basically, the story is that all the teens at the top of the world makeout spot, all they want to do is, well, make out. But when an object crashes into the forest nearby, they soon realize that they are being invaded by killer clowns, with a K, from outer space. Mike Tobacco, which, that name, played by Grant Kramer, and Debbie Stone, by Suzanne Snyder, are forced to dodge sentient popcorn, cotton candy cocoons, killer balloon attack dogs, and more as they try to convince the local police, Deputy Dave Hansen, played by John Allen Nelson, and Deputy Curtis Mooney, by John Vernon of the Dean fame, that these clowns are really, really, really real and totally not fake. Eventually, Debbie gets wrapped up in a balloon and taken back to the big top alien spaceship, but video game logic prevails as our heroes realize that giant red noses on the clowns are the weak spot. Mike and Dave race to save Debbie, my gosh, and with the help of the perennially horny Terenzi brothers, fight sexy clowns, booby traps, and a giant clown Zola before blowing the alien vessel sky high. As our heroes watch the ensuing fireworks, they're treated to one last insult as pies rain from the sky, splattering their face. But it's all over, and our 3 reluctant heroes retreat back to Debbie's house, where they presumably fuck. And that last point, before we get to what you thought of this movie, I have to just say that I add that on there because let me tell you, these 3 characters are all over each other.
Oh, yeah.
The men are all over each other. The women are all over both of them. At the very end, it's almost as if like Deputy Dave is kissing Debbie. I'm like, these 3 people are going back to fuck.
There is a weird skeevy sort of swingery vibe going on there that I don't know was intentional.
I don't either, but my gosh, they couldn't keep their hands off each other.
They really couldn't. I didn't even think about that, but it really was like a very physical, like everyone's just falling onto each other's arms and touching each other.
We're hugging on each other. We're like pressing our bodies against each other. We're sticking our face in her neck and like just sort of like nibbling on her. I'm like, what the hell is going on with these 3?
So odd.
So that's why I had to add that in at the end, because obviously they don't go fuck in the movie. I mean, maybe they do. I don't know, but
well, not
that was
in the movie, not in the section,
not the filmed.
No,
but I gotta
ask. Subtext is what it is.
Yes, there is so much subtext there. So, how old were you when you saw this, and what about it scared you?
Okay, I think I was 8.
Okay,
I saw this.
That seems to be a impressionable age for a lot of people. So far, we've had people that have seen movies when they're 8 and 4.
Oh, 4? Jeez.
Yes, I have seen.
Well, I feel like 8 is when you think you're old enough to handle things, but your parents still tell you you're not.
Yep.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That's probably very true.
That is a good way to put it, yeah.
When I was 8, I was still in that phase where I really wanted to experience horror, but I was severely traumatized by it. Like I vividly remember watching Temple of Doom.
Oh yeah.
And just being incredibly traumatized by the heart coming out.
Who wasn't?
I know, but like it was funny because my parents were so restrictive. Like I wasn't allowed to watch Ghostbusters.
Oh wow.
Because they thought it might be scary.
Temple of Doom?
Well, that's the thing, because we watched Raiders as a family,
yes.
And then we watched Temple of Doom, and it was one of those occasions where I don't believe my parents had seen it since it came out in the theater.
So is Killer Klowns another example of a family movie that went horribly wrong?
Killer Klowns is so interesting, and I think it's because I was really into Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Okay.
Actually, let me correct that. I was really into Return of the Killer Tomatoes.
Okay.
Which is the better film, let's be clear.
I have not seen either of them.
Neither
but
Oh my God.
I've always wanted to, just because the
watched the
concept is
cartoon.
phenomenal.
Fuck, let me pitch you Return of the Killer Tomatoes. George Clooney is in it.
Just George
He's in
Clooney, is that the pitch?
Yeah, George Clooney is in it. It's one of his first roles.
Okay.
John Astin is in it. Gomez himself.
Oh.
And, like, it's one of those movies where midway through the movie, it runs out of money and realizes it's a movie, and they start trying to raise money to finish making the movie. So George Clooney is hawking products on the set.
Oh my god.
It's like, it is balls out silly, but it actually lands its jokes.
Oh.
Okay.
So I highly recommend Return of the
love
Killer
the cartoon.
Tomatoes. Well, it's that kind of humor.
Yeah.
So I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a drawing class, and I probably was drawing Killer Tomatoes, whatever. And my teacher said, you know what you might like is Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh, dear God.
And so I came home and I said, my teacher said I should watch this movie.
Oh, no.
And I grew up terrified of clowns. Like, my aunt had one of those sad clown pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And
yep.
I would make her take it down if I was coming over.
That's hilarious.
Because it really freaked me out. And so I don't know what my parents were thinking when they okayed this, because they knew about my history with clowns. I mean, for fuck's sake, 88 Beetlejuice just scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And so we rent this, and not only me, but my brother, who was 3 years younger than me, watched this with me.
How did that go over for him?
Well, I really feel like at 5 he just saw the goofy, cartoony clowns.
Okay, and did
I don't
think
feel like
about the horror.
I don't think the subtext really got. To.
So what scared you the most about this, besides being terrified of clowns? Like what? I mean, obviously this clown part.
It's such a weird movie because it is very cartoony and over the top.
Yeah.
But then there are things in it that are like upsetting.
Yes.
Like the when Pooh Bear, the dog, gets taken, I remember feeling really bad for the guy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like the clowns just took his dog.
Yeah.
And so the cotton candy things, not only are they cocoons, but they're also kind of acid, and they're eating away the flesh of the people within.
Weren't they sucking? Like at one point, they're drinking out of them like
Yeah,
straw?
I feel like the implication is that is liquefying people,
Oh,
and then the
it's
clowns
it's
drink
like
it.
spiders.
Yeah, yeah.
Fucking spiders.
But without question, the thing that terrified me was Mooney's death, the ventriloquist dummy.
Oh, the ventriloquist dummy.
Ah, yes.
And
that was kind of gruesome when there's like a little plop at the end and
Yeah.
his hand is covered in blood.
And he
Well,
shakes off the blood on the floor.
not only that, but like you can really tell on the HD version, but the little dots on his cheeks are blood smudges.
Oh, that's right.
And the ventriloquist mouth thing is actually him bleeding out of his mouth.
Right. I noticed that.
And
this last
so-
time I was watching.
You know, like I watched it again yesterday, and I love the movie now. I find it to be just a joyful experience. But that moment when the clown leans him forward, and it's the close up on his face, and he says,
Don't worry, Dave. All we want to do is kill you.
it is so upsetting to me.
Well, I can see how that would be, because like for the rest of the movie, like they just kind of talk in gibberish.
Yeah.
And it's this one moment, and you hear their intention, and it's through the dean from Animal House.
Yes, exactly. And he's so great in the entire movie up to that point.
Yeah.
Asshole.
He's just so crotchety and
Crotchety old
angry.
man.
Yeah.
So what did you like? Did it make you more afraid of clowns as you were like?
I think it
after
was
you saw it?
therapeutic, actually.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Interesting.
I think it took away my fear of clowns, because shortly thereafter, we're talking 2 years now, but I was reading It.
Okay.
And there's no way I could have handled It if I was still afraid of clowns at that point. So I feel like I had this moment of horror, and I definitely had nightmares for a while, and my parents never again made the mistake of just renting a movie on someone else's recommendation.
Not even your teachers?
No, well, clearly they cannot be trusted. But it was definitely an impactful thing. That was a surprisingly scary thing.
That's so funny because this is the first time I'd ever watched this movie. I had heard of it obviously so many times, but I was just like, I probably can miss it. It was one of those movies where I was like,
sure,
I don't know.
Late 80s comedy horror. I mean, that could really go either way.
Yeah, but I'm glad I watched it. I think if anything, it's a really awesome testament to practical effects and the power of practical effects. I didn't realize that all of the clowns were these horrendous puppet things.
Yeah.
And it definitely made it, I wouldn't say scary, but like creepy and a lot more gross than I was expecting. Like I didn't know they were gonna have those nasty teeth and like the really weird scrunched up faces, and it definitely is disgusting. Like the best word to use to describe it is disgusting.
And like I think the effects are obviously, I think, the best part of the movie, and it's because of the Chiodo brothers, right?
Oh yeah, the Chiodos are awesome.
Because like they created the Critters design. They've gone on and done a whole lot of different type of creature design. And they did like Team America. They helped with the puppetry for that. So like, and I think that is probably the best part of the movie. Although there are a couple scenes that even still I think are really well done. Like I loved the slow reveal of what the popcorn is.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So like in the very beginning of the movie, it's just they're shooting popcorn at him, and it's like, okay, this is kind of silly. But then as the movie progresses, you start to slowly see that, they're sentient. There's the really cool scene of them kind of crawling along the bathroom floor in Debbie's place, and then like there's where the guy, like one of the clowns, like shrinks all the people and tosses them in his bag full of cotton or of corn, popcorn, and then there's the reveal that they're turning into these like mutant snake type things that are attacking her.
Is it the larval phase? We don't know.
Right. It's just, but it's such an interesting and kind of a slow reveal throughout the entire movie that this happens. And I just think that I really noticed that this time watching it, that was really well done. But okay, so you were afraid of clowns. Is that something that you have gotten over?
I think clowns are upsetting.
Mm-hmm. They are. They're viscerally upsetting.
Well, I think what it is the reason clowns are scary is because even if they're angry, they look happy.
Yeah.
And the reason I've done some research into the history of clowns. And reason for the makeup being like that is so people in the back row at the circus can still see a big smile.
Oh, yeah.
That's why the exaggeration. So because it goes back to the Commedia dell'arte masks, the giant frowns, the giant smiles.
Yeah.
And it's basically just to show an emotion to the audience that's far away. And with clowns, it took on that tramp aspect then, and that's from the 20s and the Great Depression. And clowns being scary, clowns were scary because you didn't understand them, but clowns as a scary thing is very recent. like 70s, 80s were the beginning of clowns as a frightening thing.
I think it's interesting too that there's like almost sort of like Pennywise. There's like a cyclical nature to this clown panic. Like I remember in the 80s there was like and it kind of I think grew out of maybe the idea of satanic panic as well.
And John Wayne Gacy.
And then John Wayne Gacy, of course, who is, for those that aren't aware, was entertaining at parties as Pogo the Clown while over 26 people were buried in his crawl space in his yard.
Yep.
And that was in the Midwest, and it absolutely
outside
terrified.
Chicago, in fact.
Right.
I actually, with my partner Elle and I just drove by the house that is built on the foundation that was Gacy's.
Right.
Good God, what a house to live in.
Right?
I mean, at least it's no longer Gacy's house.
I just think I wouldn't be able to shake the creepiness and like whatever vibes were imbued upon the land.
Yeah, they moved the headstones. They didn't move the bodies.
Call back to Poltergeist.
Which also traumatized me as a kid.
Me
and has a scary clown.
Yep. And that's kind of the thing that like I realized when I was watching this, because I watched this movie again for this podcast, but I watched it right after seeing this documentary, and I don't think the documentary is very good. I have issues with it, but it's called Wrinkles the Clown. Have you guys heard of Wrinkles?
No. I've heard of it, and I've seen a lot about it, but I haven't watched it yet.
I didn't know it was a documentary.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a documentary about this clown, and it basically started back in like 2014. There was this YouTube channel, and it was called Have You Seen Wrinkles? And the very first, we'll link to it in the show notes, but the very first video is this girl sleeping in one of those beds that has like one of those drawers underneath it where you can like store things.
Trundle bed.
Yeah, and it's like a closed circuit television. It looks like, of watching this girl, and then the drawer opens up and there's a clown.
Huh.
And he gets out, he lays like a stuffed animal next to the girl, and then walks up to the camera, and it cuts to black. And then
it's horrifying. I will say the GIF has been making its rounds on Twitter, and I hate it.
Yeah, and so that started it, and then all of a sudden there were stickers showing up all over Florida with Wrinkles the Clown, and it gave a number to call.
Huh.
And people would call the number, and you would get this voicemail, because he rarely ever picked up, and he started getting like called so many, like thousands of calls a day, I think, at one point. But it was this voicemail, and he'd be like, "Yeah, this is Wrinkles, ho ho ho," and he had this like this kind of ho ho ho, this kind of like almost kind of that kind of voice with it, and it kind of took on a life of its own, where parents started disciplining their children by calling the number and threatening to sick Wrinkles on them.
Oh, dear God.
And so and then, this kind of fed into this worldwide in 2016, like clown panic, where people started seeing creepy clowns everywhere. I mean, there's a Wikipedia page that lists all of the different places from Croatia to Wisconsin that all these creepy clowns were talked about or seen. It's made national news. And it got me thinking with this movie, because like in the 80s, there was like a decade that was gripped by it as well. With back in like 1981, there were children saying that men were dressed up as clowns, attempting to lure them into vans. And like it always seems to be centered around kids that perpetuate this, and that's kind of part of what the documentary is about. These kids that kind of like it's become kind of almost like an urban legend, or like a creepypasta, where there's YouTube videos of the kids calling the number and then freaking out, and they post it up there. Like it's taken on this life of its own, and I think it's so fascinating how much clowns still today are kind of terrifying.
I think one of the things for my generation specifically, and I was born in 79, is, we're from the age of the low rent Bozo shows, and Bozo actually originated in Chicago. So I got the original, the real Bozo.
Oh, yeah.
Well, not the original Bozo, but I got the official Bozo.
Yeah.
Right.
And
because it was sort of like the kind of the horror host,
yeah,
right? Like
they would syndicate the character out to other markets.
Right.
And so when I was on vacation, I'd watch this weird local Bozo. And the set was much smaller, and the costumes were a little dingier. And there's something about local television. You know, you mentioned Crispy Pasta, Channel Zero. The first season of Channel Zero with Candle Cove really mines this local television horror.
Yeah.
Because
It really does.
there is something exceptionally scary about the artificial reality of local television. You know, the painted background that's supposed to be the sky. You know, it's almost a nebulous thing that you can't quite put your finger on.
It's sort of like the Uncanny Valley, right?
It is, yeah.
It's not like this giant cartoony thing. It's something that looks like a facsimile of a person or a background, but there's like something off about it.
And so you add Klowns to that because it's the same thing, the same kind of scary. And if you're watching this as a child, like a young, impressionable child, it's really easy for the enjoyment of it to flip over to horror. You know, and if you look at it, like Stephen King released It in September of '86, and honestly, I think the clown community hates Stephen King because he has single-handedly ruined their business multiple times over the years as it gets recaptured into the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sort of reminds people that clowns are scary. And, you know, the current trend of scary clowns definitely owes itself to the release of the first It movie. But even beyond that, you see, you know, like one of the most effective gags of clown gags in recent memory is the Hell House LLC clown gag, where it's a clown mannequin that keeps being scary, you know, and it's really funny because
Have you seen Hell House LLC, Mary Beth?
I haven't, no.
Yeah.
the first one is really enjoyable.
I've heard really good
really
things about
is.
it. I think they're on Shudder, right?
Yeah, all
Yeah.
three of them are on Shudder, and the first one's really good.
I just watched the last one, and it's better than the second one.
I mean, that's
But it's
really
still not good.
difficult. No, it's not. But they had this like mannequin that the idea is they're building this like haunted house, and they have a mannequin of this clown, and throughout it's found footage, and throughout the movie, the clown just appears places.
No, thank you. No, thank
And
you.
It's
then it
very
starts to, like,
frightening.
it really is. It's really creepy. It's the head will sometimes, like, the camera will pan, and of course when it comes back, the clown's looking at a different person, or there's just all these little tiny random things that happen with it, and it's probably the most effective part of the movie.
Yeah. And it's really funny to me because like I've grown through my real terror of them, and I was trying to show Puddle's Pity Party to my partner and girlfriend, and they couldn't watch it. Puddles is the sad clown with the golden voice, and if you have not heard him sing Royals, you owe it to yourself. And if you have a problem with clowns, just listen to it because he's amazing.
Okay.
But I'll share a link for that one.
Cool.
But it's he's literally just a gigantic clown who sings songs.
Nope. No.
And
No.
So, Mary Beth, are you scared of clowns? I don't remember if we talked about this.
it sounds like she might be.
I can watch clown movies, but like something about clowns just sends a shiver down my spine. I think, like you said, it's the uncanny valley of like they are people, but with exaggerated like feet and faces and smiles, and just something about them like gets my defense mechanisms like ready to go, like fight or flight. Like for some reason, I'm ready like for a clown. If like I'm at an event and there's just a clown being a nice clown, I'm like, he's gonna hit me and I'm gonna hit him right back. I don't know why.
Well, it's the same thing as someone wearing a mask, because a clown face is a mask. You know, whether it's a legit mask or just paint. So you see the people, they're behind a mask, and you don't know what they're really thinking. Yeah.
So I think it's just that, and I think just that combined with the scary things I've seen throughout my life with like what clowns are capable of, I think it just has made me very wary of that. I had a friend whose dad went to clown school, and he told me that, and I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And like, he was such a nice person, and I never saw him in clown makeup, but when he said I went to clown school, I was like, are you fucking serious? Like, I can never talk to you again, my dude. Like,
we're done.
He was like, you look on my soccer team with my best friends in high school, and I was like,
friendship over.
We're done. Yep. I cannot ever talk to you or your father ever again.
Unsubscribe.
Well, I think that might be a good place to end on too.
God, I fucking hate clowns.
But seriously, listen to Puddles. He's amazing.
We'll include that in our show notes as well. Then,
fine.
I mean, you don't have to look. You don't even have to know he's a clown.
You don't have to look at him.
He seriously has. He has one of the most amazing voices I've ever heard. And the thing he does is like he rose to fame on America's Got Talent. And so he walks out a clown that doesn't talk and has, and everyone's just like, well, what the fuck is this? Someone's actually on America's Got Talent as a clown. And then he starts singing, and it's amazing. So, I am not overselling Puddles. He is legitimately one of the best singers I've ever heard.
How do you pick your clown name? Anyway.
I feel like from talking to people who are clowns, and I actually know a few people who are clowns, it's a very, it's almost like a confirmation, like the religious rite. It's very invested in. It's not like I'm going to be this clown this day and this clown this day. You are this clown.
It's like when you become the Pope.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, there's smoke involved.
Anyway, we can wrap up now. I just that came into my head. I'm like, how'd you pick the name Puddles? It's like what you name a puppy.
Oh, well, you don't want to name a puppy Puddles because that's just asking for it.
True. All right, are we ready? Should we wrap up now?
I am a bad influence on keeping things on target. There's a reason my podcasts are at least 90 minutes.
All right. The tangents we go on, it's fun.
I have nightmares about fucking clowns. I had nightmares about spiders when we talked about arachnophobia. So now I'm going to dream about goddamn clowns. Anyway.
All right. Well, thank you, Cooper, for joining us to talk about killer clowns from outer space.
My pleasure.
Where can our listeners find you, and do you have anything you want to plug?
Well, yeah, the easiest way to find me is Cooper S. Beckett. CooperSBeckett.com is my website, and Cooper S. Beckett is my handle on most social media. I would love it if you'd check out my new horror series, Spectral Inspector. You can find that at Cooper S. Beckett or at SpectralInspector.com. And I have other stuff too, but I'm really working in the horror genre these days.
Cool.
Awesome.
So you've heard from us, but we want to hear from you, listeners. What is your experience with killer clowns from outer space? Send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, and we might feature you in an upcoming episode. You can also reach out to us on Twitter. I'm at MB McAndrews.
And I'm at Gaily Dreadful.
And, of course, tag us at Scarred Podcast if you want to talk on Twitter.
And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.
Thank you to Steve Barnold for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our killer intro music. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and stay creepy.
Bye.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is the briefing room?
It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.